with the questions on one side, and then the other side is what Common Ground provided as rules of engagement and civility rules. So, one, we are here to explore ideas and learn from others, connect, not to conflict. So, as part of the conversation, we want to value everyone's voice, listen to understand, speak from experience, respect everyone, looking forward, right? So we're about answer solutions and question kindly, right? So we want to invite you to create a safe space for people to talk even though our perspectives might differ, and then ask questions for understanding as well. And with that, the way we wanted to position this conversation is to keep it around action, civic engagement, social justice, social change, and also I invited partners to talk about actions we are actually taking to deal with the issue. I know that we cannot solve every problem, but if we have a conversation and we can show models and how we are doing a lot of things in Cleveland that are models for the rest of the country, and how we all can be involved no matter what perspective we come from. So those are the expectations. You can keep them in front of, we'll get to the questions, right? And this is a conversation. It's not really about us presenting to you, but we are available to answer questions for you, clear up anything, because lead is a major issue in our city, and people have a lot of confusion and questions about things that are going on, and we do want to provide that support for you. We also have a parking lot, and some of us will stay and answer specific questions right after we get to the conversation.
I'm really excited about being a part of this conversation. I think it's so many different perspectives, you know, in trying to like remediate lead in Cleveland. We got landlords that have certain obligations, concerns. I think the city did a great job trying to like facilitate some of the challenges that might be faced and even be able to create resources. But in this conversation, you might find where there's still more resources that's needed. Then you got residents, you got educators that have worked with children that have been firsthand and seen the effects of lead poisoning. So, you know, I think that this conversation will exhibit a lot of different perspectives. I think that everybody's perspective is very valuable, and really excited to just really like hear, you know, the full spectrum of like how do we show up, right, in the world about this lead, whether it's an organization or an individual. So I'm like really excited, Kelly, like get going with these questions.
So the first question is, what inspires you to want to get involved, and how can we strengthen connections between us to build community and raise awareness?
I have a passion for children, and not knowing some of the children that enter into my space could have possibly been poisoned by lead based on the behavior and the traits that they had. I came to this space hoping that my experience with the children, their parents, could then give me some insight, some information that I can share and help those parents that are having questions about why their children are behaving a certain way, why their scores in school are a certain way, which got me to become the Lead Safe Resource Educator. So our one-on-one platform for training is real simple. It just explains how you can identify lead in a property, things you can do. We call it our tool belt, that you can put in your tool belt to help you become lead safe in your home. Just little tidbits, things like, say, for instance, take off your shoes before you get into the house. So that's why I'm here. That's what brought me here. That's what's keeping me here, and I hope to be here a long time.
I thought it was difficult to work in bureaucratic processes. I didn't like the bureaucracy because, you know, to me it's like problem solution, but it was 6 months to get something done. And so when Kim came to me in this neighborhood, it was like, you know, got an opportunity to really like fix this lead problem, but I want to do more than just lead. I want to like teach people civics, because policy and changing this thing, you know, requires that. I was like, you know, you don't sound bureaucratic. You know, in fact, you like out the box a little bit. So I was like, you know what? Yeah, I want to see what that looked like too. So it was really two reasons that got me where I'm at now, and I'm excited to be here. And then I also want to educate people into how to empower themselves to actually take charge, right, civically, to like help move dollars where they need to be to actually help fix this problem. So that's why I'm here.
More comments?
I have a comment. So I first was learning about lead probably 17 or 18 years ago. A client of mine came to me and explained to me that their child had suffered from lead poisoning. And at that time, there were no resources. There was nothing. And I got to commend everyone that's involved in this because things have changed. Obviously now there's people that can help. In my class, when I studied to be a lead inspector, there were two ladies that were in the class, and the reason they were in the class is because their children had been poisoned by lead. And again, like you indicated, I didn't know what it was. Eating a pencil, where do you get lead? You know, I didn't know. And now you really appreciate and understand it's not even just the paint, it's the dust and how it happens, and the children crawling on the floor, hand to mouth, licking, and it's sweet. They just keep going back for more. And who knew that? So as far as how to maybe inform the public a little bit better, the only thing I can think of is maybe some of these folks that have unfortunately had these experiences where their kids have gone through this, maybe we make videos of them and they tell their story. And it's maybe a public service announcement kind of thing. It was very moving to hear that in the classroom setting when those ladies told me what had happened to them. It was very moving.
Thank you. I won't talk too much right now. Don't do a lot of talking, so I'll talk after.
I'll say something. I believe this happened for me the early part of the 90s. And as Fred indicated, it takes sometimes a long time to utilize federal money. But one of the things about the federal government is that they are always educating. Parents that were taking their children to the park thought they were giving their children exercise, and the dust from the hand-to-mouth action was part of the reason that the children were being lead poisoned. So then how do we make a difference? How do we make a change? How do we utilize what the federal government has provided to us and have an impact on the lives of children? The young man is recording, but this is just on my heart. You can mess with adults, but you don't mess with a child. And how do we ensure that a child that is growing up around us is growing up in a safe environment? And so that was when my thought process changed and my mission changed. And so how do I address this? So we trained so many people. We educated so many people. And as it was stated earlier, it is so much more that needs to be done. So the reason I'm here, I want to hear what it is that you see that needs to be done. Because this is a revolving and evolving process that as we, it's like, almost like the coronavirus, as we address one issue, then another one pops up. So how do we make sure that we are addressing the needs in a community where if there's a house built before 1978, chances are there's some lead paint in it. So how do we do that? And it takes all of us. It just does not, and I'm gonna get on my soapbox.
That's why I want you to.
It takes all of us because it just cannot be the Lead Save Coalition. It just cannot be the city of Cleveland. It takes a community. It takes everyone to say, oh, don't do that. Don't take this dirt off the floor and then put it in your, you got to have some sanitizer. You have to help. So that's why I'm here today. I want to make sure that if there are any new ideas, anything that we can do to make sure that a child has the opportunity to grow up, then I want to be a part of that.
All right.
Thank you. Anyone? Any more comments?
Well, I'll speak real, I'll try to be brief. So I've been working with LED and with the city of Cleveland in this role for a little over 2 years. Didn't know much of anything about LED before I took this position. But 2 days before I started the job, I saw a documentary. It was not Misled, but it was another documentary, and it talked about how LED can impair children and how they, as Fred mentioned, grow up to have behavioral issues and things of that nature.
You remember the video?
It was I don't remember the name of it. It was on TV though. It was on BET actually. And so I was shocked because I was seeing all that. I'm like I'm starting a job and I don't know what I'm getting ready to do. And so I see this, and so it must have been meant for me to see that because I saw it 2 days before. And then about 2 months after I started, I saw Fred do a presentation at the LED Summit downtown, and he talked about the possible connection to behavioral issues and learning disabilities and crime and things of that. So things started connecting. There's so many different things environmentally that affect how we behave, but as many things that we can eliminate out of that equation is all for the best. So as I got started, I started thinking, as I started, understanding that, you had to be certified as a lead abatement contractor to do the work. My father was a contractor when I grew up. So when I talked to him about it, and I said, well, because he always worked on our home. I'm like, well, did you ever work lead safe? And so, well, he said, well, you know what, I took a class on lead back in the 80s. So I'm like, I was shocked because, again, that was new to me. But he said he took a class on lead. I don't know if he did work lead safe. But so everything started coming together. And at the same time, my daughter was going to a daycare in Glenville before we got the Glenville grant. And I was close to her director at the daycare, and she said, we need help. These kids need help. She's like, I know there's something going on with these children, and I don't know if it's lead. And so all of this happened within about 6 months. And so, as Commissioner said, it's all about the children, to give them an opportunity to grow up, to have, the best chance they can have. And I had this conversation earlier, people complain about the education system. But if you have a bad education system and you have learning disabilities, you have much less of a chance. So whatever we can do to help children have a better chance in life.
So I haven't been to any summits, I haven't seen any of these movies or even been in a conversation, but I can give you the experience I've had with it. But I didn't know, I do know there was a summit of some type. It'd be good to know how I can get to this information. Like if there was a summit, was it online where I can download and watch it or on the BET?
I know the documentary that she mentioned, Misled, is on YouTube.
Misled is on YouTube.
Yeah.
But also, we got a lead education piece that you can come to.
From the city.
All from the lead resource center.
The
Lead
lead resource.
101, you will get it from the ruler to the.
Land resources, okay.
Yeah, and you can also go on ehw.org where there's documentaries on Al Jazeera. ehw.org.
EHW?
Yeah, Al Jazeera came and did a Cleveland specific documentary on Netflix.
Okay. All right, so the reason I'm asking is that I'm doing these dialogues this fall, and it'd be good to get some of the right people in the room because we're supposed to be trying to figure out what does climate justice mean to you, so that's what the topic is. So it sounds like this is,
I've been on several panels over the last 2
Okay.
weeks, so we can connect.
all right, that's what I'm trying to get.
Okay,
And I just want to say this one story. So about 20 years ago, I don't know, but Clinton was president. It was a group working on this project called NCAP. I don't know what it meant, but I think there was some kind of way that these were like ways to encapsulate lead. I don't know what happened to it, if that's kind of outdated, but that was like 1997 or something.
right. It was a messy product.
Okay, that's why I didn't know. That's the last time I was involved with the issue. It was just a for-profit company trying to do work with the painters union. So that's as far as I knew it went. But I think it's the same topic, right? Encapsulation.
Yeah, we have some technical stuff we can help you with too.
Okay.
So, did you have any more comments?
No, that's plenty. That's it.
Okay. So, Ms. Bogdan, could you introduce yourself and say why you came here? And the question, we just stopped at the top, but what inspired you to get involved? How can we strengthen connections between us to build community and raise awareness?
Too much.
Oh, it's on your paper.
Okay.
It's on,
My name is Wyvon I have properties on Superior, and one of them is at 11300 Superior, which was where 113th runs right into the building. That's my little raggedy building. It's raggedy because there's lead, there's arsenic, there's methane, there's all kinds of toxins under there. It's petroleum-based. There was a gas station there 100 years ago and another one 70 years ago. And they left the tanks underground. So I found them and I kept trying to get people to come and pay attention to the fact that we have some fluid underground in something that smells like spoiled. And it was coming into the building. I could smell it when, construction would go on. Finally, I got the state fire marshal out. 3 feet below surface, there's fluid, viscous fluid. The sewer district did me a favor and they came over onto the property and did an analysis, 300 and some pages of analysis of that property. It was designated that it could not be used for commercial or residential use. Problem is, it's connected to me because I was part of the gas station 100 years ago. I was part of the gas station 70 years ago. So I'm here because I know that I've been doing this for 20 years on that piece of property. I noted that we were having a diminishing amount of people coming out of Glenville High School. It went from 1,200 to 700 to, this last time I think I did was 58 students graduating from senior high school at Glenville. So I've been working with the EPA. I've worked with the county and the city. County and city were very resistant, and they denied all that stuff at first. They kept telling people I was crazy, that there's nothing under that ground. But when I found it, and the sewer district did a regional, they put a duct in there. But before that, they had to put a test well. The test well was put right next to the 9,000 gallons of, the 3 tanks, 3,000 gallons each, which is 9,000 gallons of some kind of yucky fluid. They put a test well just right next to it. They put one 2 blocks down and another one 2 blocks from that. And they all tested that some of that fluid was seeping towards the Rockefeller Park area. And some of it had probably gotten into the aquifers and the water table and all of that. But of course, I'm not going to get that information specifically. I did get quite a bit of it in my report. But I'm here because we have to do something about these things. We can have as many meetings as we want to. If we don't remedy that, if we don't teach people how to protect themselves from these hazards in the community, they're there. They're all over. There's 65 lots that Ohio University tested with this butterfly project where they planted wildflowers in these lots after they shaved them off. And those are some of the lots that I've been attempting to target and study, because we had a problem with the councilman wanted to put a playground on top of there, then he wanted to put houses on there, and I've resisted all of those things. Because before we can do any of that, we have to fix what's there. We have to fix the ground that we walk on. It's not all about painting houses. It's not. It's about the lead in our grounds. It's not only lead. A lot of the things that people talk about that are genetic diseases are based on our environmental toxins that are getting into our systems. We have more people right there in that area that have had those, have diabetes that they discover in adulthood. We have children that have diminished capacity because they have ADHD and all those other things, so they can't perform as regular. They're not enough of them making it that far with their minds intact, not necessarily, and their health. So we're doing a lot of lead testing. I was in the early classes before you start doing what you're doing. Earlier class, I have a certificate from the lead council or something like that, where I came to all the classes and did all of that stuff. It helped me in a sense, but it didn't help me to get people to be aware of, it's your responsibility to make sure that you don't allow your children to run through these places and bring that lead into your house. It's not just about the paint. It's about what's on your feet, what's on your pets. Your pets are running all over the neighborhood. They're running through these fields that have had gas stations, that have had shoe repair shops. They've had auto repair, they've had, did I say dry cleaners already? And gas stations and other things, auto repair shops. All of these things, people used to pour stuff into the ground. It's still there, it didn't go anywhere. It didn't leave us, and we're bringing it to ourselves. And we blame it on companies that had pain. It's not all about them. We have to
So
take
we
some
have-
responsibility for what is going on in our own environment. And we have the opportunity to target specific places to repair them. We have the ability to repair and to remediate and to learn. We can test and teach our young people, give them job preparation in these lots so that we can find out how to protect ourselves, how do we put a shield.
What inspired me to get involved was basically, I come from an economics background, and I firmly believe that our system of land use is one based in resource extraction. And when we talk about lead, or when we get to the last question, we'll talk about air pollution, or noise pollution, or heat and trees. Any of those, we talk about these problems and we wonder how we're going to pay for some of the remediation, and at the same time, the communities in the fringes of Greater Cleveland are spending tons and tons of money out there on amenities in their communities. And that's not to begrudge them for that. However, as we spread out and sprawl like that, it is not just ignoring the core city, but actually at the expense of the core city. Folks in the core city are working towards that same resource extraction because of the system of land use that we have. The city itself creates connections and human endeavor that create that wealth, and then it gets shipped out to different communities instead of taking care of what was already existing 40, 50 years ago when we actually maxed out our population. We've pretty much doubled how much land we use up while having a stagnant population. All of the resources that go into that doubling of land could have been used maintaining the communities that are closer in and solving some of these problems that we live. You know, it's not like people, when they first were painting their houses with lead paint, it's not like they knew they were doing damage, but we learned that, and our lack of resources to remedy that is a direct result of the resources being shipped out to the college house.
All across the city, we have educators, we have a tenant landlord liaison, we have a Let's Say Cleveland Coalition made of over 450 members from all different sectors that participate in policy development. We already recommended policies as a whole community to the city council that passed the new law. Resource committee, if you want to understand how they're getting us the dollars to make the resources available, people can join that. We have a screening and testing committee that people can join that committee. So these are all open committees that people can participate in. And then we do every other month, is this right? Every other month I'm trying to do your job like that. She can probably rattle it off real quick. Every other month we have a kind of report out and updates on all the committee work of the coalition. We have a website, letsaycle.org, to sign up there, participate. Fred and I decided that residents and people in the community and resident leaders, some of which are fighting for these things, are not connected to policy, right? So a lot of people are engaged in programmatic efforts, but aren't connected to system change or policy. So we are about to reintroduce another set of policy advocates and civic engagement sessions, because I've learned that people are really disconnected from policy. And so you have to be in the room, in the space, in regards to environmental justice, to have meaningful involvement. Environmental justice is not just fighting industrial polluters, it's also including people in communities that are impacted to be a part of the solution, not part of a check the box community meetings, but actually part of the development of a solution. Because we value the lived experience, but oftentimes we don't know who the decision makers are. And I have partners that have come to, on Saturdays, to engage with people in the community, because the people, for example, for this issue, say, the city this, the city that. And I say, wait a minute, we have the health department, we have community development, we have, you know, all of these different departments building a house and they have different functions based on how decisions get made and what they can do, what the resources are, and their roles in the system. And so we are really working to get people who are connected to that part of the process so that they start to they can engage in a different way to actually and play our role in making sure that we have people at tables, right? I don't want to speak for people. I want them to come and show up, speak for themselves, but we also need to build capacity as well as lift those up that have been working in their communities and show that value.
Yeah, and connect them to power, because a lot of times people have very powerful stories, but those stories need to get to Columbus. They need to get to the State House so that these legislators can hear real stories from real people, right, before they make those decisions of what to fund or reallocate money toward, right? And it is part of the commitment of us as an individual, as a group, to be able to empower ourselves, right, and take some ownership in the type of environments we want to live in and leave behind. So, you know, we definitely emphasize investment in people. Yeah.
So that's one something. There's opportunities to, even if, say, you don't want to get involved in that side, we have resources, we have applications that's hard as heck to fill out. So just to get family members that need help, there's money to address it, but people are scared to fill out the application. And stuff like simple things like that. It's so many different ways people can connect to get involved based on your lifestyle and what you're able to do or what you're passionate about. It don't have to be one way or the other, but there are options, right? And just talking and communicating and having forums and conversations, and we learn more about who people are, where they're from, and then how to connect. So, do we want to talk about what other EJ concerns you have? What do you know about environmental justice? I like to understand where people's perspective about environmental issues, environmental justice, like what do you understand, you know, about the issue in general?
Or what do environmental justice actually mean to you? Like, when you hear that, what resonates for you? And ain't no answer or wrong answer.
And they right.
For me, it would mean that my neighbors to the left, to the right, around the corner, down the street, all have the same opportunity to live, their children to grow up healthy, their homes to be healthy, lead-free, or lead-safe, that is. Inequality across the board when it comes to environment. Do I have a grocery store where I can get to? Do I have access to fresh food like somewhere further down the road might have? Can my children go to school without having the disparities that happen over here and they're not happening over there? Do we have books for my children, or are they learning off of printed pieces of paper because there was a shortage of books in it? It's equity across the board is what it means to me.
Well, yeah, I'm leaning in that way, I guess. When I think about environmental justice, I think about disparity. I think about marginalized communities. I think about redlining. I think about why, when I look at these maps, you know, the same place where it's, you know, perforated with lead is the same area that, you know, has certain juvenile justice issues, violence. I'm like, it look like the same map.
Right.
But it's actually different, it's talking about different things, but it's all centered in the same area, right? And to me, that seemed intentional, right? I'm like, you know, or it's like the water, there's the water poison, right? Like area, it make you think about that, right? And then, environmental justice, you know, when I think of intentionality, I think about who's responsible, right? Who made the decisions, right? You know, how much do racism play in environmental justice, right? You know, a lot of those things come to my mind, and I'm still asking questions, right? I'm still looking for, you know, real people to, you know, take ownership, right? I don't like the boogeyman, you know? Yeah, so think about that.
Let me ask you a question, Paul, a question. Since I'm involved in nature education, trying to get kids into nature, we want them to appreciate it. We want them not to see an insect as something that you immediately want to kill, because maybe in your house, sometimes they are something you want to kill. We want kids to have the joy of being outside, feeling safe. You know, just, it's been studied. People feel better when they get out in nature. It does something for you. Is that environmental justice? Do you guys care about that? How can we make sure that kids get up to the nature center or to their parks and have that available to them so they understand the world they live in and have just a greater sense of how everything connects, and even land use, and definitely like keeping people living closer in with wonderful parks that mean that maybe you don't need to have 2 acres of land to yourself, but you have a great park that you could go to get your dose of nature. You know, is that part of it? Do you care, and is that something we should be working on?
That's such a valuable question. Such a valuable question. I guess I want to step back and see if somebody else. I definitely got some weighing in on that, but I want to step back a little bit.
I was privy to a study that our planning department in the city of Cleveland did a few years ago called Place Matters. And the study talked about the difference in life expectancy from the city of Cleveland to Lyndhurst. It was like a 30-year difference. And some of the differences were because they have a more walkable community.
Right.
With more trees.
Place to exercise.
Trees clean the air. As you mentioned, you talk about these lots that we have. So there's so much, as Fred mentioned, that, you know, that's concentrated in, lower income areas or underprivileged areas where there's not the representation to go in and make sure that these lots and properties are clean. So now you have people trying to plant gardens and things of that nature, which is good. But if you're planting them in soil that is contaminated, then, you know, so that comes back to the environmental issue.
And to piggyback on what you said, planting things in these lots, and you get this thing that, we tested it, it is fine. But it's not testing for all those things. We're testing for some things. And there are other harmful things that compound it. So we have to do more extensive testing. We have to go back to the studies that someone paid $1 million to have some of these lots tested. But we never got the results for what the findings were. So we have to start connecting those dots, policy-wise, and as far as the physical testing of these lots, connecting it to the people and say, well, we found such and such a thing there, and this is what we can do about it. So we have to have solutions, because to lay it open and say, well, how do you want to fix it? People don't know. Because they didn't know it was there in the first place. And they maybe knew something was over there, but they didn't see immediate effects of it. So doing extensive testing on those lots.
You had,
Yeah, I just had heard 2 things that I want to ask about, because the public policy part is what I'm here, because we do a lot of voter registration and get out to vote, but it sounds like we never hear these kind of issues when it comes time for voting, you know, when people are about what's important in your community. So to me, that is the most important, what you just said, the policy, and if it's who's making these decisions and what agency is supposed to be. And I'm glad to see the city here. I heard the city's been doing a lot. It's got to be county and state and federal government property and federal government policies. They got to be able to address this without sort of just the way we run it now. We're not talking about any of these issues.
I think there is a conversation, but we gotta get past the conversation to action.
Okay.
And so the issue with the coalition, right, we're talking about lead in the coalition, but for infrastructure. It's a system that brings the state, the federal, local community together to solve an issue, but it's connected to policy. It's connected to policy change, so it's an infrastructure, it's a model, and we can expand the what. We're focused on the how, with all the levels engaged, because you need that much strength and power to actually, we can reduce lead poisoning in Cleveland over the next 5 to 10 years. It's been done in other cities. It's not something you cannot do. That's the thing. Like, let's really show how it gets done. The difference that we have in Cleveland around this particular issue is we have actual resources for landlords, because our landlords are low income and our landlords don't have money. So we have money so they can actually comply with the law. Because just having a policy alone is not good, just having a program alone is not good. There needs to be a comprehensive process and plan strategy, but inclusive strategy. So the people in outreach on the ground, they've gone through policy advocacy. We didn't just pluck people out of the community. We spent time processing them through a process. Now they have living wage jobs. Some stayed and some couldn't stay. But it's just thinking beyond what's the superficial and really digging deep and being really intentional. And it doesn't matter what issue it is, it's the intentionality. Just on the climate justice and the federal dollars. Now we're talking about, okay, this time when we work on an environmental, it's not gonna be these people over here and then these people over here with the resources and these people over here just mad because they not getting access. So now how do we work differently with resources and be more intentional and then check those buttons? Check the process and evaluate it regularly so it's not, again, everybody got missed that's impacted by a particular issue.
Yeah. I wanna respond to your question. I think that the work y'all doing as far as exposing CMHD school students to like nature and environment. There was a quote by Carter G. Woodson. I want to tie it in with like those maps he talked about. Carter G. Woodson made a quote. He said, "When you control a man's thinking, you do not have to worry about his actions. He will find his proper place and will stay in it. You do not need to send him to the back door. He will go without being told. In fact, if there is no back door, he will protest until one is made for his use, his education demanded." Now, I have some of those charts that talk about from Lyndhurst to the inner city of Cleveland, the 20-year disparity of life expectancy, right? But in that, right, is, right, if the environment in which you're growing up in is central to your life expectancy, then that means that there is some type of toxicity within that environment, right? Which means that it will not be a positive thing, or it might not be a natural inclination for children to like walk in the field or walk in the forest and play by the trees, if there are any trees, right? So I think that an added component is to be able to understand not only adverse childhood experiences, but also community trauma, right? And institutional trauma that actually, you understand, can actually modify, right, the natural inclination to be in nature, right? And make nature become something that's adversive for those children. So I think that the exposure to nature is an awesome thing and is necessary and needed. But there's other things, the why, right? The why for the children to be able to uncover, you know, why in a sense it's not a natural inclination.
And there's some boards out there as we walked in with some of the reporting that was done by the Place Matters team actually, and the maps and things. We put a few things out just to have you kind of look at that, and you can go back and refer to that report. It's a board out there.
To be
It can happen.
I mean,
It can happen.
yeah, it can happen.
Not to make
Yeah, it can happen.
So we can help another neighborhood have.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there's an education piece to, you know, the business that you guys do.
A lot, yes.
So any other comments from Vera? Calling people out. The lady, the lady in the back, I forgot your name. Comments? Nothing. Anyone, I wanna make sure that you get to speak if you'd like to speak.
I just wanted to add to your comment, I think it may be a good connection if you're, well, you already are working with, CMSD, but if you're not working with maybe child care centers, there may be a connection there with the work that we're doing with the Blessing Child Care Subcommittee.
And exposure is important as well. Like you said, they gotta come back home.
Right.
But you never know what you expose a child to yet when then they might be, doing the same type of things when they get older, so.
Plant seeds.
Yeah, they can plant a seed in a cup, take it home, watch it grow.
And I'm saying planting seeds just in general.
In general, yeah.
So, do we have, I know some people might have questions instead of like, I see people seem to have more questions. Do
Brother,
you
write
have
your question down.
questions or comments for us to take back with us to use or share? Definitely write them down. But then
My mind always goes right away to transportation and mobility. If there's a 14, 15-year-old kid who would love to go up to Shaker Nature Center, how are they supposed to do that?
It's a great thing, it's right on the rapid, we need to make sure everyone
Yeah.
knows that
And
and it feels welcoming to everyone.
That rapid, when I was a kid, went every 5-10 minutes depending on rush hour. Now it's 15 or 30 minutes. How often does the bus that goes by that kid's house get to the rapid? Why is RTA so much slower now than it was 20, 30, 40 years ago? Who makes the decision of where those routes go, how they're funded, how much RTA has to work with? Those kinds of things are huge barriers, and I love the fact that the rapid is there and that RTA does do what it does and does as much as it does with as few resources as it does. However, it's one of these, yeah, it is right there, but it's very difficult to do that either way because the bus only comes every 45 minutes and then the rapid only comes every half hour. And if one of those isn't in sync, you're waiting 2.5 hours to actually get to the nature center. You ain't going. Like, you're turning right back around home. And how many people would otherwise be at the nature center every weekend if some of these things weren't the case? If that bus was coming like it did when I was a kid, or even 20 years before that, and how many kids are being shortchanged exactly because of things like that? And that's just mobility. There are 10 other systems that are playing at this, and all of it is, yes, it's available in theory, but in a day-to-day, actually like living life, it's that picture. Like, yeah, it's there, but there's a wall there. Whereas for some folks, they can just walk right because they're in the wall.
I'm sorry, she had I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
You wanted to say something?
I appreciate you saying that. One of the things that I absolutely love about the Nature Center is the fact that it was born out of citizens coming together and noting that they didn't want for others to take over the land, right? Like, it is an example of environmental justice. I think one of the powerful things that we're thinking about at my institution is how it is that we can share the power and the resources that we have, leverage it for the community, right? And so when you think about the fact that there are institutional barriers, how do you make it, I think this is a question for everybody, like in all of our spaces, how do we leverage our power for others, right? And so you now, as a nature center, almost know how it is that we can use what we have in order to better like activate the green space, right? Like, so how is it that instead of like maybe even inviting people into your space, that you have community-based classes or you teach other people how to do that in their own area? So it may not be welcoming them in, but showing them how to do it where they are.
The fact that it's on a brook that transverses the whole city that we're now building trails on, and you may not have to take the rapid to get off or take the right. And so seeing that as a bigger system, there is part of it.
I'd love to just, this is an anecdote of this So my father has somewhere a promotional poster for the Clark Freeway that says, like, enjoy the Shaker Lakes, from your car. Because the Clark Freeway was supposed to go through there. And there's a reason that did not get built. There's a reason that we're spending $331 million on like the fake version to get up here. And those are these things of like, who makes these decisions and for whom? And, that's a very concrete example of money that could have gone to someone else. But it's going to something that's benefiting like doctors in Brexit. It's going to benefit doctors in Brexit who can get to the clinic that much faster. But $331 million is a lot of money.
Could have been every 3 day clean.
Before we close out, because it's getting loud over there, I want to hear, first I want you to write any comments you want us to take with us. Second, I would like everybody to give me one word. What are you thinking? How are you thinking? We definitely want to invite you to participate in civics engagement. Go to landsafecle.org to join the coalition. But I want to hear what you want us to take back or write it down and give it to us. But do you have any final burning thoughts before we wrap up?